Afterword. The Miss Dashwoods and their mother were sitting down to their dinner on a warm April afternoon when their servant came in with the news. "I have just met Mrs. Ferrers as she was passing in her carriage. She sends her regards." As he saw the ladies' changed faces, he added, "It was Miss Lucy Steele before, madam. She is married to Mr. Ferrers now." "Yes," said Mrs. Dashwood, observing how white the faces of her two elder daughters were. "Thank you, Thomas." Eleanor now learned the difference between expecting a painful event and experiencing it. For the first time in her life, she felt she would not be able to stay calm a minute longer. And then she was forced to do so, because Edward Ferras's figure appeared outside the house. He came in, was welcomed, and asked a few questions about the weather and the roads. There was a long silence, interrupted heroically by Eleanor, who asked, "And how is Mrs. Ferrers? Is she waiting for you in the carriage?" "My mother?" said Edward with some surprise. "I believe she is in London." "I meant Mrs. Edward Ferrers." "Perhaps you meant Mrs. Robert Ferrers," Edward said slowly. "Mrs. Robert Ferrers?" repeated the ladies. It turned out that after it became clear that Mrs. Ferrers would not change her mind and indeed pass all Edward's money on to Robert, Lucy suddenly moved her affection to him, too. 2 weeks after the Miss Dashwoods had left London, she wrote a letter to Edward explaining that she was going to marry his younger brother, with whom she was greatly in love. Edward's engagement to Lucy was formed when Edward was very young and could not yet judge people better. But later, when he realized his mistake, it was too late, as Lucy seemed to be so much in love with him that he felt he could not break his word to her. He had never realized that she had been after his money all the time. At any rate, Edward was now free and came to Barton to ask for Eleanor's hand, which was what he had long wanted to do. It can be easily guessed what her reply was. Eleanor and Edward lived very happily in their small house next to Colonel Brandon's residence. It was not far from Barton College either. Their happiness increased even more when, after 2 years, Marianne moved to live with the Colonel as his wife. Neither Eleanor nor her mother had ever dared to suggest this marriage to her. Marianne simply started to gradually find Colonel Brandon a very good companion. His tastes in books and music turned out to be exceptionally good. She valued all his other opinions more and more. In time, she even forgave his flannel waistcoat. And as Marianne could never do anything by halves, she finally married the man whom she loved with all her heart.